Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another Retro RPG. At the end of another week, the end of another poll, and you have no idea how good it is to say that, we've got a very strong win for Shadowrun 5th edition. Now I'm lifting this with some difficulty because it's a big mighty tome. But anyway, we'll cover this on the desktop in a wee second, and I'll be back as usual at the end of the video with some other channel related stuff and poll related stuff. But before I do that, I'd like to take a moment to thank my Patreons, who this week I have been told no to never trust an elf. But these are fantastic people who make all of this possible, and their efforts are so much appreciated, so I'd like to thank them from the absolute bottom of my heart. Now, if you'd like to join them and help support the channel, and I sure wish you would, or you'd like to see these videos a week early, or you'd like to gain access to one of the other levels of patronage we've got, there's a Patreon in the description down below. If you check it out, it'd be very much appreciated. But anyway, let's have a look at Shadowrun 5th edition. So, this is Shadowrun 5th edition, which came out from Catalyst Game Labs in 2013. And obviously, it's the 5th edition of the Shadowrun game line. I've covered the previous 4 editions on the channel previously. And unlike the other ones, it does seem strangely shy of that. While 2nd, 3rd and 4th editions boldly proclaimed it on their front cover, this one just says Shadowrun Game Rulebook. Now this is a weighty tome, so I've got to be pretty careful, because the thickness of the book and the length of the cover will mean that it'll hit my camera, because it is that low above the desk. But, showing you the spine, we've got Shadowrun Core Rulebook. You can see how thick it is, because it's 500 pages in length. But over on the back, we do have an admission, Shadowrun 5th edition. Everything has a price. There are cracks in the world. They're slender, dark, and often cold, but they're the only things that keep you hidden, keep you alive. They are the shadows of the world, and they are where you live. You're a Shadowrunner, thriving in the margins, doing the jobs no one else can, and have no office, no permanent home, no background to check. You are whatever you make yourself. Will you seek justice, sow seeds of chaos, sell out to the highest bidder? It's up to you, but this much is certain. If you do nothing, the streets will eat you alive. You can survive, even flourish, as long as you do what it takes. Sacrifice part of your soul for bleeding-edge gear. Push the limits of your will, learning new and dangerous magic. Wire yourself into the matrix, making your mind one with screaming streams of data. It'll cost you something. Everything does, but you can make it worth the price. Shadowrun 5th edition is the new version of one of the world's most popular and successful role-playing games of all time. A fusion of man, machine, and magic in a dystopian near future with rules for character creation, magic, combat, matrix hacking, rigging, and more. Everything you need to face the challenges of the 6th world. And Catalyst Game Labs and Tops are involved in it as well. So, making sure I don't destroy the camera with the cover, we can see the quality of the artwork in this edition is absolutely brilliant. A very nice group of the different races in a very Shadowrun pose. A description of what a Shadowrun is, a sort of dictionary entry, which is very, very nice. We're onto a table of contents, which, given its 500 pages in length, is quite long. We've got 5 pages up to page 479, so it's not quite 500. The credits page, and then we're straight into a story, as Shadowrun so often does. We start off with a story explaining the situation. And we've got quite a few pages of this. It really is a decent story. And then we've got an introduction to the game world, talking about Shadowrun 5th edition, what the world's like. We've got some slang from the shadows. I do find it interesting that we have Hacker and Decker, where Shadowrun always used to use Decker. We've got another story. It's really delving us into the lore of the world and immersing in it first. And then we've got Life in the 6th World, so talking about how everything has a price. There's magic, the megacorps, different types of cybernetics, what happens in the shadows. And it details different places in the world you might Shadowrun. So North America is the standard place, and it details some of the different countries which now exist in Shadowrun. Central America, South America, going through Europe and Africa, covering the entire world and giving you options of playing almost anywhere. And then it talks through a Shadowrun itself, mentioning Mr. Johnson's, what's going to happen at the meet, doing some legwork, which is very much core to Shadowrun Adventures, that you'll be finding out background information. Plans, implementing the plans, wrapping everything up. And it details out different types of jobs you might be doing. Data steals, burglaries, breaking shit, extractions or insertions, deliveries, protection, hooding, misdirection. And then it talks you through the opposition. So the corps are the big boys, and it talks about the big 10 corporations in the world. Continuing through, as I said, the artwork is absolutely splendid in this edition. A massive wide image of Seattle, and we've got a few images, sort of astral combat there. Continuing through, it talks about gangs, academics, manor chasers, the politicians, the law, what goes on beneath the surface, so what you'll be doing off the job. Money, the Matrix, music, Tridio, so their version of 3D television, sports, food, sex, staying healthy, getting around, detailing out the world in very much every section. Shadowrun concepts, so it's talking about games masters, hits and thresholds, buying hits, glitches. So I'll do a rules breakdown and we'll go into this in more detail. Extended tests, teamwork tests, time passing. Talking about your characters, so the different races, humans, orcs, elves, trolls and dwarves. The attributes. Special attributes, so your essence, where if you get cybernetics installed, your essence lowers. Your edge, your magic, your resonance. Talked about the Matrix and different types of cyberware, bioware, different gear you can get, contacts, your lifestyle, your edge. And we've got another story. It really goes into detail here. And then we're on to character creation. So common character types and their roles. So we've got facemen, spellcasters, deckers, technomancers, riggers, street samurai. And we go through every step. So different power levels, choosing your meta types, example character creator, whether you're going to have magic or resonance, different types of magic. We've got advantages, so guts, high pain tolerance, etc., and the costs. We've got negative qualities, disadvantages basically, where you can have bad luck or bad rep and get some karma back for your character creation. Talking about sinner. So in the world of Shadowrun, most people have a SIN, a system identification number. Shadowrunners tend to be different because they don't tend to have one, which means if you leave your fingerprints, if you leave some DNA behind in hair or blood or whatever, you're not on the system, so you can't be easily tracked. So having a SIN will be a problem. But it talks about different ones, where you might work for a corporation, so it'd be very limited. Some very nice Union Jack trousers on a dwarf there. So other minus ones, disadvantages. Then we're on to purchasing skills. Choosing them through, spending your resources and buying gear. We've got some tables here to show you example things you might buy, but obviously there's a bigger gear section later on. Spending any leftover karma. Final calculations, because a number of attributes and things are derived. You've got your final touches, creating a backstory, and then it's detailing out other things. So we've got sample character sheets here. And then we've got templates. Now I have to admit, I found these very useful because learning another version of Shadowrun and doing a session of character creation didn't appeal that much when we were playing, so a bunch of us just decided to choose templates, and I really enjoyed that. So we've got occult investigators, street shamans, combat mages, brawling adepts, weapon specialists, faces, tanks, deckers, technomancers, gunslinger adepts, drone riggers, smugglers, sprawl gangers, bounty hunters. And we've got a longer section detailing out all the skills. We weren't choosing them before, but this time we're seeing how to use them, how to default skills, and what all the different skills are. You know, using tracking, using your social influence skills, using leadership, technical skills. I'm flicking through as fast as possible because 500 pages to get through, this video would last forever. Different languages and lingos. Where's the smoke? So yet another story, sinking us into the world. And then we're on to the combat section. So talking about getting actions, how turns work, the different things you can do, because there are a large amount of options in Shadowrun. Combat resolution, ranged combat, different things to do with the environment. When you're firing firearms, whether it's single shot, semi-automatic, burst fire, long burst, full auto, suppressive fire, just so many options you've got, even just with guns. Scatter diagrams. Defending in combat, so trying to avoid being attacked and hurt. Subduing, dead man's triggers. We've got penetration for weapons and vehicle combat. Free actions, passenger actions for vehicles. We've got glitches and healing, so we've got medicine skills, stabilizing people. Another story, rooftops and rainbows. And then we're on to the Matrix. Now, the Matrix has kind of changed. Shadowrun judged the future quite badly. When the different cyberpunk games were coming out in the very late 80s, early 90s, obviously the internet was barely known of, and people tried to make predictions on how technology was going to work. And they all came up with a general similar idea that they were going to be computer networks where you would have to fight your way through nodes. And basically every cyberpunk-type role-playing game, including Shadowrun, created these mini dungeons where in the middle of a game, the decker would plug into a computer and he'd have to go on a quest in his own mini dungeon by himself without the rest of the players. The rest of the players would just get to sit around and do nothing while he went and got the data. But Shadowrun got it worse than most games, because it didn't really bring in anything to do with Wi-Fi. So while Cyberpunk had a nice system where you could hack into the computer systems of a car and start it up and run your opponents over. If they're hiding behind a car, you can get it to drive off and reveal them, or reverse over them. Do different things. By hacking those objects, you can remotely hack cameras and shut them down and things. Cyberpunk got that very much right from the start, and made hackers useful to have around, netrunners as they're called in Cyberpunk, during a mission. They can shut things down, they can take part. But deckers in Shadowrun were basically, you carried them around, they were maybe half decent with a pistol, until you got to the computer, plugged them in, and they went on their separate quest. In 5th edition, now I've said all that, they've brought in what they call personal area networks, PANs, where everybody who has devices has them networked together. So if you have a smart gun, instead of, in earlier editions, it connecting to your cybernetics through a magnetic pad in your palm, or if you didn't have that, you could plug in a cable from the gun to your head to use a smart gun that way. This time, they're all Wi-Fi enabled, and that means people can hack them. So they can attack your cybernetics through your smart gun and things like that. And that's a really interesting idea. It is an extremely different thing, because characters suddenly become very, very vulnerable. But anyway, we've got Matrix basics. We've got different devices, population of the Matrix, what's in there, devices, PANs, personas, files, hosts. Shadowrunning with a comlink. Misusing the Matrix, cracking the Matrix spine. Cyberdecks, the more powerful way of accessing things. Because people will have their personal phone, and of course they can use that because it's like a smartphone. It's connected to the Matrix, and you can use all that. PANs and WANs, so personal area networks and wide area networks. We've got different Matrix actions, including different things. You can brute force things, disarm data bombs. Lots and lots of options as the person moves around or makes attacks at personal area networks. We've got common programs. We've got technomancers, people who are far more skilled. It's almost like they're magic. The danger of side jobs. We're on to another story before we reach the section on riggers. Now, riggers haven't changed too much. Again, it's an interesting thing. Riggers have become more drone pilots these days, where in early versions of Shadowrun they were the drivers. You plugged them into a car and they became incredibly skilled. But when they're out of their car, they're pretty much useless. But everybody started using drones. So the rigger would sit back in the car, remotely controlling a drone, and the games master would have to find a way of putting them in some kind of danger. So we've got different stuff about rigging, data processing, and firewalls, because of course if you're using a drone or a car through your Wi-Fi network, through your personal area network, people can attack them. We've got different drones, drone initiative, a little shadow music, another story. Then we're on to the magic section, talking about the traditions. So there's still sorcery, there's still summoning, there's still shamans. Everything's very similar. The spells are still recognizable. We've got things there, combat, sense, analyze, truth, invisibility. But we've got counterspelling, we've got ritual spellcasting, we've got different types of rituals. It does seem to have incorporated from the start a lot of stuff which most other editions would then do in their grimoire sourcebook. We've got enchanting. We've got different types of adepts. Now adepts, instead of being sorcerer adepts or summoning adepts, do just tend to mean physical adepts. People who take their magic and instead of casting spells, weave it into their body, giving them enhanced reflexes, making them do more damage with their bodies. We've got astral combat. Different reagents. The different mentor spirit archetypes. So we've got bear, dog, cat. These are all very familiar, but we've got some other ones. Seducer. Wise warrior. Initiation, so people can get better at magic. Generally, when Shadowrun first came out, you had 6 magic points. If you got damaged in combat, you would lose those. If you took like nervous damage from being critically hit. Or if you took cyberware, it would take away your essence and lower your magic. Then they brought in initiation through the first grimoire book, and you can go up in levels and gain more magic points. So you can be wandering around with 1 point of essence left. So theoretically you would just have 1 point of magic, but if you've initiated enough times, you could be walking around still being a decent mage. Another story, we're on to the section on Games Master advice, how to design Shadowruns, different types of scenes. Checking whether there's plot holes. We've got delivery job types, different MacGuffins you can introduce, motivations and personalities, role-playing NPCs, managing your game. Some nice artwork again, another big fold-out. The capital of Aslan there, with some very nice glowing pyramids. And on the other side, we've got the different covers of different Shadowruns. So we've got 1st edition, 3rd and 4th, I believe, because 1st and 2nd both use that image. Anyway, carrying on. We've got campaigns. Talking about planning to finish. Alternate campaigns. So instead of being a Shadowrunner, you might be Street Scum or High Life, or you might be in the military or a criminal syndicate, or you might be Dockwagon. You know, people are injured and you're coming to their rescue. What else we got? Got traps, countering magical threats, security devices, because of course this is a world of high tech, so the security cameras and pressure pads and card readers to block entrance to various places, and the players will have to find their ways around it. We've got bigger detail on system identification numbers and licenses for actually legally carrying weapons. And we've got some different drop-in locations. Hellhole Bar, Secret Research Station, Nova Hot Club, Mom and Pop Shop. And little maps. I think they're a little too small, but it's nice. A no-tell motel. We've got a detail on reputation and street cred. So as you do bigger missions, you'll become more famous. Be able to demand higher wages. We've got karma, helps and hindrances, more on NPCs, and lots of sample NPCs, so gangers and street scum, corporate security, police patrols. Prime runners, so powerful NPCs who are other Shadowrunners. We've got some sample contacts, so if you want a quick beat cop, you've got the stats there. And then we're on to critters. Firstly, we've got their different powers, because of course animals in Shadowrun can manipulate magic much as the players can. We've got all their different abilities, And then we've got different creatures, so ordinary dogs, great cats, horses, sharks, etc. And then some other ones, devil rats, cockatrices, ghouls, hellhounds, feathered serpents, different types of dragons, dealing with toxins and drugs, substance abuse and addiction. Now we're on to the gear section, so different equipment. Talks you through buying it, selling it, fencing it off. You know, once you've killed a security guard and sold his machine gun, how many are you going to get for it? And we're on to the firearms, a very much important part of Shadowrun. I've always felt that Shadowrun is very much a shopping game. You know, the players will spend ages choosing out the perfect pistol, the perfect armor. We've got lots and lots of different weapons. We're up to the Predator 5, where we had Predator 1 and 2 in Shadowrun, first edition, and the Street Samurai catalogue. We've got different shotguns, cannons and launchers, different types of ammo, different grenades, clothing and armour, electronics including comlinks, which is the Shadowrun version of a mobile phone, different software you can get, ID and credit, skill softs. So if you're not skilled at something, you can buy a chip which you can jack in and it will give you a skill, but only on sort of knowledge stuff, basically. Oh, there are active softs, so you could get a skill to teach you how to fire a gun. But it's going to be far more expensive than knowledge ones or translator ones, lingua softs, which teach you a language. Optical devices, vision enhancements, audio devices, breaking and entering gear, survival gear, grapple guns, slap patches, eyewear, earwear. Then we've got bodywear, so we're onto the cybernetics, cyber limbs, implant weapons, so you can have a shotgun implanted in your arm. Then we've got biological enhancements, you know, replacement organs and the like. Not quite cybernetics, but very, very similar. We've got some vehicles. And different cars, planes, watercraft, because of course Seattle, the default setting, is a harbour city. We've got some different drones, and then we're on to the massive index. Because there is so much to cover, we've got a few pages of index. Some quick to find tables at the back, random run generator, and a character sheet front and back. And finally, we've got an advert for Shadowrun Online with a code at the bottom. I don't think I've ever used that, but feel free because I'm never going to use it in the future. Some more information about Shadowrun Online and the same picture we entered on. So that is Shadowrun 5th edition, a mighty tome, and I actually think it's a very good version of Shadowrun. They've tried to update things. There's some problems. I'm not massively keen on the personal area networks, the way they work, because it forces everyone to kind of be a bit of a decker. Otherwise, they're going to be vulnerable to attacks. A decker will be able to take out their cyber eyes, disable their weapon, etc., which is very harsh. But it's at least a move in the right direction. Previous versions of Shadowrun really didn't deal with Wi-Fi stuff, and it was starting to look a bit ridiculous. So, that was Shadowrun 5th edition. That won the poll this week with some 38% of the vote. Remembering there's only 4 options because YouTube's limited their polls for some reason, but that was a dominant lead, and it came in ahead of the second place, which was Boot Hill 2nd edition, on 28%, even though Boot Hill was leading for a while. Now, while I would have loved to have covered Boot Hill and seen how that game developed, because we've already covered 1st edition on the channel, but I've heard that 2nd edition is far more of a proper role-playing game instead of a skirmish simulator like the 1st edition. But let's be honest, Shadowrun 5th edition is a really solid edition of the game, so I've been very glad to cover it. Now, in 3rd position was Cthulhu Tech on 22%. Now, I'm sad because I also have Cthulhu Tech sitting here and I would love to cover it, but alas, not this time. It doesn't seem to be very popular. And in last place was Rift South America 2 on 13%. Which is kind of sad. I do like some Rifts. I've got loads of books still to cover on my shelf, but we shall get around to them at some point. They do win the polls occasionally, and it's great to look through them because there's so many good ideas in them. But anyway, they're all wiped out the poll, and we're back to a Retro Adventures poll. And I'm trying to keep some older stuff going here. So first up, we've got The Lost City for Dungeons & Dragons by TSR in 1982. And this is probably the oldest TSR adventure I haven't covered yet. So it'd be nice to keep working through these older adventures. And I have to admit, I'm really not aware of the Lost City. Was it some new ideas? Was it exploring a new area? Was it branching pathlines as some of the early adventures did introduce? No idea. Perhaps it's just a standard dungeon quest. We shall see if it wins the poll. Next up, we've got The Vanished for the Star Trek role-playing game by Fazer in 1983. Now, the Fazer role-playing game for Star Trek was fabulous. It was before there were too many movies, it was before there was The Next Generation and all of those series. So Fazer got to create their own version of the Star Trek universe, and it was absolutely brilliant. I'm kind of sad that it doesn't exist anymore. So many good ideas in these books, and I've covered a few of the adventures on the channel, and they've all been absolutely excellent. So, if it wins, we'll have the joy of looking through another of these. After that, we've got Empire in Flames, the final part of the Enemy Within campaign for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Considered one of the most iconic campaigns in history. And although this adventure is seen as the stumbling at the end, it's a very poor end to the series, I'd be interested to cover it and see how they did come to an end of this fabulous, fabulous campaign. I've covered all of the other parts on the channel so far, so this would just finish it off. And finally, because again we've only got 4 options in the polls these days, we've got A View to a Kill for the James Bond 007 RPG. Now, I've covered a couple of the adventures in the past and they've been really interesting. It's amazing how well they did these, creating a very interesting and slightly different spy game. Now, if this wins, it'll be an absolute joy to cover, but I've got a feeling this isn't going to be too popular because the game is so old. This was from 1985 and it's never been republished or anything, so it's probably quite forgotten about. But anyway, it's in your hands now. Well, what else have we been up to? Well, over on RPG Gamer, we've finally come to the end of the Knights of the Old Republic comic series. I'm going to catch up on the Vader comic series, which has ended since the last time I got to cover it, so I've got about 3 issues to cover of that. The High Republic comic series, I've got about 4 issues to cover of that until it ends as well. And then I'll be covering Knights of the Old Republic comic series War, which is when they return to it by the time Disney had taken over. So it's a very different beast from the original comic, even though it includes some of the same characters. But it's interesting to see how somebody else's view on these characters and storyline continues. So we'll be having a look at that. As I usually do, I'll be reviewing one day, and then I'll be doing stats from the issue the next day. And over on Drive-Thru-RPG, well, I've been releasing some character classes I had ideas of when I was away travelling. I've had some ideas about various races and their iconic warriors, so I've been creating these, and I'll be publishing those over the next few weeks. But what I'm actually writing at the moment is a choose-your-own-adventure style of character creation for 5th edition. Now, this will not be 100% compatible with the most recent 2024 rulebooks, because I haven't really had a chance to look through those yet, even though I do have the Player's Handbook in digital format. But I think it's an interesting idea. I kind of covered it on the House Rules one, where I came up with a choose-your-own-adventure version of character creation. But I think it'd be interesting to do it, and I've come up with a way of you go through the sections as it helps you choose what species you are, what class you are, what background you are, and what your attributes are, by making different decisions, and you're creating a character history as you go along. I think it could be a lot of fun, so I'm going to be doing that over the next few weeks, and releasing that maybe in 2-3 weeks' time. But anyway, as usual, I've been whittering on for quite long enough, so thank you very much for watching. As always, most of all, you look after yourselves. I'll catch you later. Bye now.